Welcome back, deep divers. Today, we're going somewhere I bet you see all the time, but maybe don't think too much about.
Oh, really? Where's that?
Up. The moon! We're going to go, well, beyond just like what it's made of, the sciencey stuff.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, we're diving into some really interesting theories about it, like what is it really? And why is it even there?
Okay, I'm hooked already. What sources are we looking at for this deep dive?
Well, a big one is this interview with a researcher named Clif High. He uses data analysis, but get this, also insights from remote viewing.
Remote viewing, that adds a whole other dimension to things. So we're talking about some pretty out there stuff then.
Oh, yeah. Probably heard a lot of, I don't know, woo-woo ideas about the moon, right?
For sure. There are a lot of theories floating around out there.
Right. So we're going to try to sort of separate the fact from the, I guess, wild speculation.
Love that approach. Let the listeners decide what they believe.
Exactly. So Clif High's work is interesting because he's been analyzing data about the moon for a long time.
Oh, like how long?
Way back to 1997. And what's really interesting is that even back then, he was picking up these unusual signals. Something wasn't quite adding up about the moon.
Signals in his data, like what kind of signals?
Well, over time it got more specific, but early on, it was just this sense that something was off. And, he was actively trying to avoid being influenced by, all the popular moon theories.
So he wasn't letting preconceived notions cloud his analysis. That's important for any research.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is where this analysis led him to something we can all see, how the moon looks in photographs.
Okay. I have to admit, I don't usually spend my time analyzing lunar photography.
Right. But think about it. Have you ever noticed that the moon rarely, actually looks like a true sphere in pictures?
I don't think I have. Now that you mention it, it's always just kind of a flat circle.
Right. It's just this flat, evenly lit disk.
But if you think about how light reflects off a sphere, there should be, brighter areas where the light hits directly, then it should gradually fade into shadow as the surface curves away.
Yeah. It's like he uses this analogy of a juggling ball. Like if you shine a light on one, you don't see it as a flat circle.
Right. You'd see the curve of the surface based on how the light reflects.
Yeah.
So he's saying the way the moon's light is distributed doesn't quite match up with it being a true sphere.
Exactly.
I have seen pictures where the moon does look round, though.
You're right. There are some photos, but
Yeah.
usually taken from far away. It's this thing where it looks flat from here on Earth that he finds so interesting.
Huh. So what's his explanation for that?
He thinks it's an illusion,
Hmm.
a projection,
Uh-huh.
specifically for us, like anyone on Earth.
Hold on. An illusion. Now that's where I start to get a little skeptical. Why would there be an illusion? What would be the purpose of projecting a fake moon?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is, and it's one we definitely need to explore further.
Oh, absolutely. But before we jump into all that, maybe we should, I don't know, ground ourselves a bit.
Ground ourselves. You mean back to some good old-fashioned lunar facts?
Yeah. Something we do know about the moon, right? Its influence on tides.
Oh, right. We all know about that. The moon's gravity pulls on the oceans, causing them to rise and fall. Tides. Simple, right?
Right. But what if those forces go beyond just, the water?
Beyond the oceans. You're saying the moon could affect us, too.
That's what Clif High argues. He says human biology, especially two specific areas, are super sensitive to lunar cycles.
And those are?
The hypothalamus in the brain, controls hormones, sleep cycles, all that, and the uterus.
The hypothalamus and the uterus. Interesting. So he's saying there's a direct link between the moon and those parts of our bodies.
Yeah. And, the hypothalamus, there's actually scientific evidence that its activity changes during certain lunar phases.
So it's not just some esoteric idea. There's some science backing this up.
Right. And I don't know if this is a connection, but it made me think of those, ancient cultures. The ones that practice segregating women during menstruation.
Oh, yeah, because of their supposedly heightened emotional state, right?
Exactly. I never connected that to the moon before. But if you think about
It
it...
makes you wonder, doesn't it, if there's a deeper connection between those ancient practices and the moon's influence.
Right. So, okay, if the moon's position is affecting our tides and maybe our bodies, could this be part of a larger plan?
A larger plan. Now you're really piquing my curiosity. What kind of plan are we talking about here?
Well, this leads to, the core of Clif High's theory. He thinks the moon was intentionally placed where it is to create something he calls contention.
Contention. Okay, gotta admit, I'm not familiar with that term. What does he mean by that?
He's talking about, disruptions, conflicts, like a constant energetic push and pull, keeping things kind of unstable?
Instability. And if you look at human history, it's certainly been filled with contention, hasn't it? Wars, political divisions, all that.
Exactly. So he's suggesting that the moon's influence is like amplifying these conflicts, making us more prone to, I don't know, discord, struggle.
Wow. So the moon isn't just some passive object in the sky. He's proposing it's actively shaping human behavior. That's a pretty bold claim.
Right. And to support this, he points to, well, some ancient civilizations going back like over 26,000 years. And they show no signs of war or conflict.
No signs of conflict at all for over 26,000 years. Are you serious?
According to his research, yeah. These peaceful societies were thriving during the time before the moon, according to, ancient yuga cycles.
So let me get this straight. He's saying human nature was totally different before the moon showed up. Like we were just chill, harmonious beings without its influence.
It's a wild idea, right? But if it's true, then it begs the question, who put the moon there in the first place and why?
You know what? We are now definitely entering some seriously speculative territory. But I am totally here for it.
Me too. And this is where Clif High's theory gets even more interesting.
Oh, there's more. Okay. Lay it on me. I'm on the edge of my seat. What else does he say?
He believes there are beings living inside the moon.
Beings living inside the moon. Wow. Okay. I've heard some wild theories, but that one might take the cake.
Right. It sounds crazy. But wait, there's another piece to this puzzle that he finds even more intriguing. He says these beings communicate in Etruscan.
Etruscan, isn't that an ancient language? Like hardly anyone speaks it anymore, right?
Exactly. But here's the strange part. The Roman elite, for some unknown reason, insisted on learning Etruscan, even though it wasn't widely spoken or used for like any practical purpose.
That is strange. Why would they bother learning a dead language? It just doesn't make sense.
Right. So Clif High believes it's because the Roman elite were somehow connected to these beings on the moon.
Whoa. Wait, are you saying the people who built the Colosseum might have been using Etruscan to chat with? Moon beings? This is getting wilder by the minute.
I know, right? It's a bold claim, but it's where his research seems to point.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. So if these moon beings exist and they were like talking to the Romans, what was their goal? What were they trying to achieve?
That's the biggest mystery of all, and one we'll have to explore more in our next deep dive session.
And this mystery gets even deeper when you look at what Clif High's data analysis suggests is coming.
Oh, what's that?
He predicts this major shift in like human consciousness coming up pretty soon in the next year or two.
Okay, a major shift. Like what?
He calls it a period of hyper-novelty.
Hyper-novelty. That sounds intense, like kind of sci-fi almost.
Right. It's this idea that, well, the truth about the moon, about who or what might be behind it, it all becomes undeniable.
Oh, wow. So like the curtain gets pulled back and everyone sees what's really going on.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, he thinks, are going to find it pretty shocking.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like if everything you thought you knew about the moon, about space, about, I don't know, like our place in the universe, it turns out to be some kind of lie.
It would be a pretty jarring experience, for sure.
It would make you question, well, everything. But wouldn't there be, like, clues by now? Some evidence that something bigger is happening?
Clif High actually thinks there already are clues. He points to things like, growing distrust of the media, all the societal disruptions, people searching for different explanations for what's going on in the world.
I could see that. It's like people are sensing that something's not quite right. The old ways of explaining things just don't cut it anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So is this hyper-novelty period, is it like this global awakening kind of thing?
That's what his work seems to suggest. We're on the verge of, I don't know, this collective shift in consciousness. All these hidden truths are going to come out. Okay, that's pretty intense. How are we supposed to, prepare for that?
Clif High really emphasizes knowledge, being self-aware. The more we understand ourselves and the forces at play, the better we'll be able to, handle whatever happens.
So be proactive, question everything, and be open to possibilities we might have, dismissed before.
Exactly. And we need resilience, mental and emotional. The world as we know it could change drastically, and we have to be ready to adapt.
It sounds like he's calling for a major shift in perspective, moving away from just blindly accepting things and towards, critical thinking.
Absolutely. Trusting your intuition and facing the unknown with courage, curiosity.
That's a lot to take in. But it's also kind of exciting, isn't it?
It is. And remember, we're not alone in this. There are millions of people all over the world grappling with these same questions,
Yeah.
trying to find meaning in this crazy, changing world.
So there's like a whole community of people who are open to these ideas,
Yeah,
questioning the status quo and exploring all these alternative possibilities.
yeah, definitely a growing movement of people waking up to the idea that, reality might be way more complex and mysterious than we saw it.
That's good to hear because honestly, it's easy to feel lost when you start questioning everything.
Totally. But remember, questioning is a sign of growth.
So in this deep dive, we started with the visual evidence of the moon, how it looks, and then explored this wild theory that it was put there on purpose to like manipulate us.
We talked about how the moon might be messing with our biology and behavior, and then even, the possibility of these beings inside speaking Etruscan, maybe even guiding our evolution.
And we're not even done. We're also looking at Clif High's prediction about this hyper novelty, a major shift in consciousness that could change everything.
It's a lot to digest, I know. But for the listener, what's the takeaway here? Like, what does all this mean for them?
Well, maybe it's time to look at the moon a little differently. Next time you see it, don't just see the same old thing.
Right. Think about the possibility that it's, well, something more.
Something more complex. Something maybe even, I don't know, artificial.
Question what you've been told about the moon, about space, about our place in it all. Be open to the idea that reality might be, well, much stranger, more wonderful, more interconnected than we ever imagined.
Don't be afraid to, like, explore these ideas. Do your own research, connect with others who are asking the same questions.
Exactly. It's a journey, and we're all in it together.
Before we move on, there's this one detail from Clif High's work that I thought was fascinating. He says the moon, besides everything else, acts as like an energetic filter.
Oh, yeah, right. He believes it's blocking certain energies coming from space, emanating from the galactic center.
So the moon's like a shield, protecting us from some powerful, I don't know, cosmic force.
That's his theory, but maybe it's also limiting our potential somehow.
Blocking us from something we need.
His data shows that as our solar system gets closer to the galactic center, this filter, it weakens, and more of these galactic energies can reach Earth.
And he thinks that's what's contributing to these accelerated changes we're seeing, to the awakening we were talking about.
It's a pretty mind-blowing idea to think that the moon could be both protecting us and holding us back at the same time.
Right. Makes you wonder, what if the moon, like disappearing or this filter weakening, is what kicks off a new era for humans? Like expanded consciousness, a deeper understanding of who we are.
That's an amazing thought. And it makes you wonder, about the motivations of whoever might be controlling the moon.
Right. What do they want for humanity?
It's the ultimate question.
So, okay, if we are being, like, influenced by someone or something, does that mean we don't have free will? Are we just, puppets?
Whoa, that's a big question, one that philosophers have been arguing about forever.
Right. It's like, if someone's pulling the strings, do our choices even matter?
But even if there are forces influencing us, it doesn't necessarily mean we're, like, totally powerless. We can still choose how we respond.
Right. So we're not robots. We still have, I don't know, agency.
Exactly. Knowing there might be, like, outside influences, it doesn't take away our ability to make choices. Maybe it even makes us make more conscious ones.
Instead of feeling like, oh, everything's happening to me, we can be, like, active participants, even if we don't fully understand the game.
I like that. Maybe this whole contention thing, all that struggle, it's actually helping us evolve, pushing us further.
Like, what's that saying? The obstacle is the path.
Yeah. Maybe these challenges, even if they're, manipulations, they're chances for us to wake up to our potential.
So Clif High's prediction about the truth coming out, leading to this hyper-novelty.
He thinks it'll lead to a more, how did he put it, a more unified and interconnected world.
So it's not all doom and gloom. There's hope.
Absolutely. But, it's on us to create that future, embrace the unknown, and build a world that reflects our best selves.
This deep dive's been wild. We started with, like, what does the moon look like? And ended up with, are there beings inside it controlling humanity?
Amazing what happens when you start questioning things, right?
I want to leave our listeners with one last thing to think about. What if the biggest problem isn't some outside threat, but our own, like, limited view of reality?
What if we're looking at the moon, the universe, even ourselves, and only seeing a tiny part of what's really there?
And maybe this hyper-novelty, it's not just revealing hidden truths, but it's expanding how we see everything.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Keep questioning, keep exploring. This deep dive into the moon is just the start. The whole universe is waiting. Until next time, deep divers.